So you went to Barnes & Noble. So then you're buying a book, Barnes & Noble. But then you went upstairs and looked over. And then you looked over and that was like the end of it. Okay, I looked over and I get a prize. Tell us what it felt like. It must have felt scary. You must have barely walked up to the edge. So we can relive that on our fear that we're going to take. That we're going to go, okay, I remember Robert's was a little bit weird. Let me see what it feels like. Stretch the sucker out. You got scared. You didn't do it. You wanted to jump it. I don't know what it was. Maybe smaller than that. Mad scientist. It's funny. But you deliver like it wasn't funny. You deliver like it was factual. When I get older, I decided to be a mad scientist. That's not funny. It's funny to be a mad scientist. Put a smile on your face and we'll laugh with you. You know what? I agree on the structure. What I really like, you pushed away your special ed. That's huge. Can the rest of us push away our whatever? I wonder. Can we push away our... I remember being a speaker one time. I felt this fear rolling up toward me. I went like that and stopped. And what the heck? That's small compared to yours. You pushed away your special ed. Elaborate that for us. What can we push away? What can we? Some more examples we can actually live. Smile a little bit more, a little bit careful in the pacing, we'll be able to see that afterwards. But fun stuff. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I have a small thing to say. My name is Dora, and I actually have a son with special needs. And so the idea of graduating, this is a really interesting word for me because the idea of graduating to me, because I took my son's disability very hard when he was diagnosed, so graduation to me was like, well, he's never going to graduate from this, but that's my issue, not his. He's happy. And so the message was fantastic.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for and please make sure for every speaker do the evaluation for them. And now we'll jump into our next speaker. His name is Tanley. I hope I will get it right. And
Ogun Wally.
Okay. Not just my name. I struggle too. So his speech is, don't leave your money on the table. Sunday, Ogun. I forgot the introduction.
Yes. Rewind it.
Today's presentation is designed to encourage you to rethink about how you evaluate and prioritize the advice and tips you receive in life. After today, we'll have a new and unique way to think about how you will decide to evaluate, prioritize suggestions shared with you to take a positive and meaningful difference in achieving the life you want. So please welcome Tanley for his speech.
Let's get ready to rumble! Here you are, you're in the ring. You feel the heat rising through your body. Slow trickle of sweat slides down your face. You look at your palms, feel the wet with sweat. You notice your muscles are strong, but they're tight, so you shake them out. You hear the voices in your corner telling you how you got there, all the training you've done, all the experiences you've had, what you can do, what you can't do. As the light shines and the voices subside, you realize there's no one else in the ring. It's just you. From the outside looking in, it might appear that there isn't even a fight. But you know it's the most important fight of your life. A fight you experience almost every single day. A fight with yourself. You're being hit with decisions and distractions every single day. Decisions and distractions. At the end of this presentation, you're going to have a simple process to help you prioritize and decide which decisions you're going to take action on to move you forward. Borju, I thank you for that wonderful introduction. It's interesting to have somebody acknowledge and validate the successes that you have in your life. As I reflect on that introduction, I realize that I'm really a journey. As I see where I came from, a skinny black kid with Coke bottle glasses, nerdy, struggle to move forward, it's amazing what I've been able to accomplish to get there. In order to move forward, I had to learn how to do just that. Which decisions will I make to move me forward? How do I prioritize those decisions? Now, the coach in me wants to make sure that each of you are prepared for today's presentation. So going around the table, you're going to see a number of handouts. One of them is a Wheel of Life. Some of you may be familiar with the Wheel of Life. I ask you, as we're going through the presentation, to fill out the Wheel of Life. We're going to do something different with the Wheel of Life today, and it's directly related to being able to make those decisions. Now, fellow fighters, it's interesting who helped move me forward. Morgan. You may not know Morgan. He's a fighter. He's a fighter. Morgan knows martial arts better than anyone I know. The way that I met Morgan is pretty interesting. He's the ex-husband of my ex-girlfriend. Can you say awkward? Early in the relationship, Morgan reached out to me and he called me on the phone and he said, look, it seems like things are progressing in the right direction. From everything I hear, I want to see the best for you in the relationship. I'm not going to be a distraction in any way. I was moved by that. Because on the surface, if you look at Morgan and I, we couldn't be more different. Morgan is tall, sandy silver hair. I'm not so tall. And as you know, I don't have a whole lot of hair. Morgan is carefree and an outdoorsman. I'm more careful and a little bit studious. Morgan is fun-loving. Well, we share that in common. We're pretty good about that. But on the outside looking in, we look different. But it quickly became clear we're very same. We're very much the same. As the relationship progressed, I got to see Morgan go through his ups and downs. And unfortunately for him, he had more downs than ups. He was dealing with a difficult divorce. He was struggling with parenting. And then he had the problem that some of us experience. He lost his job. Now, I've gone through some of that, and I understood what he was dealing with. I felt like I could connect with what he was experiencing. So I picked up the phone and I called him. I said, Morgan, I just want to let you know that I'm here for you. We had a great conversation. We talked for about an hour and a half. I wanted to create the space for him to know that he's not alone, and I'm there to support him. After we got off the phone, candidly, I felt like I didn't do enough. So I decided I was going to type him an email to help support him through this transition. I could relate to losing a job, to losing a relationship, to struggling with confidence. It was probably the longest time I've ever spent crafting an email. It took me 15 hours to write it. It wasn't contiguous. I spent 3 days focusing on the tone, the content, the importance, the belief in who he was. I typed and I edited. I edited and I typed. And finally, I pressed send. And I waited. I waited. And I waited. A number of days later, Morgan sent me an email back. He was calm, but dismissive. Thanks very much, Tande. I got it under control. Oh, I was pissed. I couldn't have been more upset about his response. Didn't he know that I cared about him? Didn't he know that I was sincere? Didn't he know that I wasn't doing it for myself? I was doing it for him. I was doing it for his kids. I wanted this whole thing to work. It took me a little while to get over the anger. But when I did something I've never done with an email before. I went back to the email and I wrote down how much each advice was worth. Every single line. Dollar value. How much is my advice worth? I calculated about $30,000 to $50,000. Morgan left $30,000 to $50,000 on the table. I know I did what I suggested. And then it hit me. Morgan's no different than me. I do that all the time. People tell me things that are valuable, and I leave the money on the table. Now, in the email, he didn't know the dollar amount. He had no idea. It was valuable. He didn't know what it was worth. The light bulb went off. Shifted my whole life. Now, each of you now has that wheel of life. I encourage you to complete the wheel of life and think about specific areas that have meaning for you. As you think about the areas that have meaning, you have another tool. You have another tool that we're going to dive into. And that tool changed my life. There are 4 steps in the process that moves you forward. 4. Step number 1, you've got a couple options, but step number 1 is critical. Listen to the advice. Someone wants to share something with you. Honey, we need to talk. It's time to go to the gym. Listen. Listen to the advice. But some of you in the room might say, I'm not an auditory person, Tunde. I'm not really on the listening thing. Sometimes I just have to tone it out. I've got another option for you, and please fill this out because you got 2 options. The other option is learn. You don't want to listen, that's okay. Learn. I'd like to take a class. I'd like to go to salsa lessons. I'd like to learn how to speak. Let me sit down with somebody who can do that. Learn. You don't want to listen, you can learn. You've got step number 2. Step number 2, I think, is pretty important. This is impactful. Imagine what your life would be like if you put this piece of advice in production. Imagine it. Meditating every day. Yoga practice. Connecting with friends. Imagine what that would be. But I got another option for option 2. You can write this down on your sheet of paper. I think it's an important one. If you don't want to imagine, organize. How am I going to put this into production? It's a great piece of advice, but is it a morning activity? Is it an evening activity? Do I do it alone? Organize that advice in your mind. How does this fit? We're getting bombarded with decisions and distractions all the time. Organize where this piece of advice fits. I think step number 3 was the most important of all 4 steps. Step number 3 is the secret sauce to the whole thing. Value. Value. What I learned from Morgan was he didn't value what I said. That's okay. It wasn't personal. Value. My challenge for each of you, we have an exercise to do this, is to put a dollar amount to each piece of advice. Some of you may be empathic, want to have a certain feeling. I challenge you to put a dollar amount to each piece of advice that you receive. Is it $15? Is it $50? When you feel good, how much is that worth? When you're moving forward, how much is that worth? Put a value to the advice. You don't have any options on that. Value. Last step, it's critical. You've got a couple options here, but I suggest you consider evaluate. Evaluate. As you're looking at that wheel of life, you have another sheet that accompanies it. That other sheet, it has information on both sides of the paper. I encourage you to look it over. Look at the areas that are suggested there. Match those up with some of the suggestions in the Wheel of Life. Do you want to focus on your physical well-being? Is it important to work on spirituality? Is your relationship with your loved one a key area of focus? Is it your relationship with self a greater priority? I encourage you to consider evaluating all this advice. Again, decisions and distractions. Decisions and distractions. Evaluate the advice. Again, if you don't want to do that because you said, look, this is so hot, this is such a strong concept, you want to stick with something else, earn it. Earn the advice. You might get it in a week. You might get it in a month. It may take you a year. It may take you a lifetime. Earn the advice. Now, as you're processing this 4-step tool, there's a couple things that may be okay, that's a simple process. I understand the concept. My challenge for you is to put it into production. We get information coming to us every single day. As we walk through this tool, you learn a 4-step process. If you take the first letter of each of the steps, it spells 2 words. Live, love. You're all in the ring, and you know what the fight's all about. You experience it every single day. I experience it every single day. We experience it every single day. When you're in the heat of that fight, you have a chance to live and love. As I wrap up today, I have 2 questions for you. What are you fighting for? What means something to you? How much does it worth? Please, don't leave your money on the table. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So it's time for the evaluation again. Yes, who wants to share? One, two. Waiting.
Who's first?
Yes.
Oh, hi.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Glenn Bryant. I'm from Valley Speakers Toastmasters Club in Hacienda Heights. I have to say, Tunde, I was very moved by your speech. It didn't sound like a speech. It sounded like somebody speaking from the heart, and I can tell it was because you used personal experience. You grabbed everybody from the very start with the let's get ready to rumble, and it got everybody's attention. Everybody was focused, and then you dropped into a pitch that was just about perfect for the point you were trying to make. There was good variation in the pitch, but it was appropriate to what you were trying to get across. If I could find an area for perhaps improvement, you've got everyone's attention and you're looking around the room at everybody, looking into their eyes, but you seemed a little bit static. You seemed to be standing in one spot for a lot of that time. But the way that you structured the speech and gave us usable pieces of advice that we can all apply because we all go through that battle. Of course we do. I think it was very inspirational on a personal level, and more importantly because it didn't sound like a practice speech. It sounded like something natural for all of us, and really very impressive. Thank you.
Thank you. Want to go next?
Oh, definitely.
Yes, you may.
Ready. Sunday, thank you. Dagmar Bryant. I'm also Glenn's wife. I'm also from Valley Speakers. Sunday, I loved your presentation. I'm going to call it a presentation. It looked polished. Look at you, the way you present yourself. You looked like you were very comfortable in front of the audience, and I tend to disagree with my husband. I think it did look and sound like something that you have worked on, and it's something that you put together. You started your presentation by telling us what we are going to get out of this presentation. So it gave us that anticipation of something to look forward to, and you delivered on that. And so you had a great opening, and your whole body delivered on everything that you said you were going to deliver on. And then when you finished it off, you said, well, don't leave the money on the table. And so, you know, the whole thing did flow. I would agree with Glenn that maybe at times you started off with this great excitement. So find ways of maybe bringing that in a little bit more when you're talking about the values. What are you excited about? Is it your love life? Is it your career? You know, just change it up a little bit in that kind of area. But I tell you what, I thought it was fabulous, and I definitely hire you.
Thanks.
Thank you. You want to share yours?
My name's Riley. I'm here to speak to you today. I really loved the story that you were telling about
Morgan.
Morgan. I was going to say Morgan. I really felt like the emotions that you felt when you were writing the email, when you came back, and waiting. You really dropped into what that was actually like. I could feel that, you know, like in the energy. So that was really cool. And there was another part. There was a part where I like really giggled. I was like, that's really funny. I can't remember exactly what he said. I should have wrote it down. But I think he used humor really well throughout.